Do you ever feel that you're constantly learning new tech skills but somehow still fail when the time comes to apply them? You're not alone. You watch tutorials, read documentation, take courses, but when you sit down to build something or solve an actual problem, it's like your brain just blanks. If this sounds familiar, this video is for you. The thing is, there's a huge difference between consuming information and really learning it in a way that our brain remembers it. Today, I want to share from my own experience a practical strategy that will help you bridge the gap between knowing something in theory and being able to apply when it really matters. This is based from my experience and what I have done, especially when studying for IT certifications. So hopefully this is helpful, and let's get started. I have been in this situation. Too much information, extensive amount of knowledge to learn. There's no way I can remember all these. I wish I could just insert the book into my head and grasp all of this content. These are all things I have said before. In our field of technology, we're always being told to not become obsolete, that we have to keep learning, that we have to have an open mind. Sometimes it is a new tool that you need to start supporting. Sometimes it's a cert that you're looking to attain. Or maybe you just want to remember something you can talk about during a job interview. In any case, there's a point in which you feel like you might be able to memorize facts and quizzes, but you question yourself, am I really learning? Will I be able to apply this knowledge when the time comes? Let's approach and see how we can dissolve this dilemma. From our time in school, we are taught that certain techniques for studying, such as taking notes, summarizing information, highlighting, but the problem that I have found with these techniques is that they might work in the short term, but they most likely won't be remembered in the long term. Another fundamental part of this is how widely and easy it is to access information whenever we need it. We have our smartphones with internet access and AI models running 24/7 at our disposition to answer almost any question in the universe. This way, we don't have many incentives to remember information. However, I do believe that it's important that we remember some things, especially as technology professionals. Being able to apply technical knowledge either for resolving or troubleshooting problems without having to look at all the pieces of information can be something that differentiates you and provides you with more confidence when you find yourself in one of two situations. So what's the solution to this problem? How can you truly learn technical knowledge? So in my experience, from both successful and failed learning experience, it comes to one thing. That's practical knowledge. And that probably comes at no surprise. You have heard that 1,000 times in many varieties, like practice makes perfect, do it every day. One quote that summarizes this that I like is from Confucius, that is, what I hear, I forget, what I see, I remember, what I do, I understand. And wait, I know what you're gonna say. So practice makes us more effective. So what? I know this is no secret, but what I have found is that when we apply practice correctly, it does make us more effective. Let's see how to do that. So in my case, I have studied and passed multiple certifications. I was able to obtain a degree in less than 2 years, and even though I don't remember every detail of all the classes that I have taken, I do remember a good chunk of the ones for which I apply this technique. And what is it? I call it the theory, practice, theory review, practice, and refine and document process. Very long name, I know, but to explain what it means, let's do it with an example. Let's imagine you want to study for a certification. Maybe it's the CompTIA A+. So these certifications comes with an insane amount of content. 2 books over 500 pages each, courses of 20 hours, practice exams totaling 2,000 Q&A questions. How do we even get started? How do we really process and apply this information? So let's take a look at each step. So first comes theory. This consists of first learning the content. So this will be by the methods that we already know from school, such as reading, watching videos, taking notes, highlighting, summarizing the information. Once we do one initial phase of theory, we move into practice. So ideally, we want to put to test what we have learned. So for this example, could be taking a few questions from the chapter that we just read and trying to answer them from memory based on the knowledge that we acquire. But much more importantly, by doing labs, simulating the scenarios that were presented. Let's say we have a question that tells about how would you diagnostic a blue screen of death, and the correct answers is something along the lines of check the Windows Event Manager. What I will say is try create that. Be familiar with each of the topics mentioned. For example, you could create a Windows VM simulating that event that will make it crash, and then look at the event viewer and check the logs for the crash. So that will give you the information and the practice of it. Now you understand what actually happens when that error log is reported and how you get to that. We move into theory and review, which is about reinforcing what you learn on the practice with more theory. But this this time with a bit more understanding of the topic. And finally is refine and document. So this is where you document the things you did on the practice, what you actually learn and remember from the theory. So this is from memory, and so that you can reference this information if you ever find yourself in a similar situation. I would say that furthermore, you create the notes in a way that if anyone comes across them, it's a simplified and efficient document that people can read and understand to quickly ramp up based on your experience on that topic. So if we go back to that Confucius quote, I like this longer version even a bit more. What I hear, I forget. What I hear and see, I remember a little. What I hear, see, and ask questions about or discuss with someone else, I begin to understand. And what I hear, see, discuss, and do, I acquire knowledge and skills. What I teach to another, I master. So when you're studying, if you do it in a way that you could potentially explain those concepts to another person so they can understand it how you will have liked to understand that at the beginning. So that's how you master any skills that you like to learn. So this process of technique, I will say, will make you much more efficient on any technical skills you're looking to acquire or implement. You will have more confidence to talk about the mentioned topics and labs that transform that experience into something that you can reference. So this is something that I have used to learn about multiple technical topics and with studying certifications or learning new materials. And even though that it does take more time, it certainly have proved beneficial for long-term memory and mastering of these topics. So hopefully this is helpful. I hope that you can use some values and insight from this particular topic and that these techniques can prove helpful in your studies. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking it and subscribing the channel. I'll make content every week, so hopefully this is something that you can use to leverage your learning as well. Take much care, and I will see you next time. Take care, guys.